Well, here's the man who's been my host and my wonderful companion while I have been in London. Alan Freeman. Hi, Al.
Hiya, Benny.
What is this I see here? Prince of Wales Theatre. Brian Epstein presents Pops Alive, introduced by Alan Freeman, and way down on the bill, the Beatles. How does this happen?
Well, I don't know. You see, it's nice to have friends in the business. No, as a matter of fact, Benny, I'm very thrilled about this. I think for a long time many people have thought about sponsoring pop concerts in the West End. They happen all the time, right throughout the country. I mean, the pop groups and the pop stars are touring Great Britain every day and every night. But Mr. Brian Epstein, who shall remain anonymous, because he's rather well known anyway, because of you-know-who, has decided to promote these concerts and from the Prince of Wales Theatre in the West End, and he's got a tremendous lineup of artists. They're going to start on the 3rd of May, every Sunday night, 2 houses. First house at 6, second house at 8:30. And I'm just absolutely stunned that I've been given the chance to compare them.
I think it's magnificent.
It's absolutely tremendous, isn't it?
But then, Alan, it's not unexpected. Since I've come here, I've realised, and I don't think that everybody in Australia realises, just how you are held in such high regard here.
Well, I'm blushing.
You weren't blushing the other day when that cab driver was coming along the road, had his light off, and when he spotted you, put it on and pulled over so that he could have the pleasure of your company in his cab.
But weren't we lucky to get that cab?
Oh, my goodness, were we ever. There were milling crowds everywhere.
Have you ever seen such a crowd at an exhibition in all your life?
Never. This was coming up from the Ideal Homes exhibition, everyone, on my first day in London, and there were so many people, and there were no taxi cabs.
That's right. Actually, I must deviate for a minute because I would like to tell the listeners, Benny, of an angle that absolutely tickled me, and that is, ladies and gentlemen, that when one lives in London and one has visitors come from Australia, you usually get rather excited at the thought of showing them around London. So I went out and met Benny at the airport, and we hopped into this car, and we came back to the West End. And usually, the one that's showing the people the landmarks rather quietly sort of says, and that's St. Paul's Cathedral, and that is Buckingham Palace, and that is Trafalgar Square, to which the reaction from the person being shown invariably always is, oh, really, isn't it marvellous? Oh, that's Trafalgar Square. Oh, that's St. Paul's Cathedral. But it was quite strange because I was the one sitting in the car, terribly excited, saying to Benny, look, Benny, that's Buckingham Palace. And Benny was saying, oh, yes, that's nice. Now, what's over here? Absolutely, you are the most extraordinary woman I've ever met in my life.
You try doing 30 hours straight in a plane and see how enthusiastic you can be.
But you know, Benny, it was marvellous. I was rather astounded by your stamina to think that you'd flown all the way from Australia, and literally within 3 hours of being here in London, within 2 hours of being here in London, you were in action with your tape recorder.
Well, I think one has to do this, and you realise how little time there's been, and yet how much material is available.
Must you leave tomorrow?
Yes, I must. You see, New York's calling now.
All I can say is that after you leave New York, it's never going to be the same.
Well, I like to think that I'm not going to ever quite be the same again because it's been a magnificent experience, and I think unless you profit from experiences, well, you just don't develop, you don't grow.
I know. The thing is, Benny, that now that you've come over and you've sampled this side, and with the wealth of material that you're taking back, I really think that somebody should do something very tangible, not for the furtherance of Benny Lum, but for the furtherance of material for people in Australia who genuinely want to hear this business you've gotten. And I'm hoping that somebody will really get down to tin tacks and say, let's send Benny Lum over more often. Because as you know, Benny, you could be here for 6 months and work every day and never stop.
I hadn't realised just what a hub of activity it can be. I didn't realise that there were the magnificent people everywhere and so happy to help and cooperate. I always imagined that they'd be a little bit ivory towerish, but I haven't struck this in one possible instance.
Oh, I might add, you interviewed Lionel Bart, didn't you?
Oh, he is a charming person.
I know, because half an hour after you left, Lionel rang me, and he said, Binny's a doll, isn't she? Can't be bad, can it, eh?
No, not really bad. Oh, that was a wonderful experience. But then coming here and meeting Robert Cleary.
Yeah.
Having phone calls at the hotel to say, Paul Gallico rang, he'll ring back. You know, I just feel sometimes that if it weren't for the tapes, I'd wake up and believe I'd dreamed the lot.
I'm only sorry that you aren't in New York when Robert is back.
I wish I would.
At Jones's Beach, doing the Around the World in 80 days, because this is the most incredible extravaganza you've ever seen in your life. And Robert, I think, runs and walks about 130 million miles every night. This set is so big, I can't tell you. And he loses weight, but of course he's French. He's very strange. The French are always strange, you know.
I want to ask you about another phase of your activities which has developed since I was in touch with you, Alan. You're writing now.
Yes. I've never sort of thought about being a writer, Benny, and I guess at the moment I'm a pretty bad one. But Donald Wedge, one of our top editors over here in London, has started a new magazine called Rave. It's a monthly magazine. It costs 2 and 6pence, which is quite a lot for a teenager to pay up for, you know. But a lot of work goes into it. And Don rang me up and said, how would you feel about writing a column? And I thought that he meant a column of records, writing about latest releases and all this sort of thing. And I said, yes, it would be fun, Don. He said, don't get the wrong idea. Not about records. He said, I think it would be great fun if you could collar the stars, get them home to your apartment, sit down, have a mad chat, turn on the tape recorder, dig deep, and get the nice stuff. Because a lot of people, I find in my experience, like to dig deep and bring out the things that I really feel the public don't want to know about anyway.
Aren't you right?
You know?
This is something I've been against all my life.
I think so.
I see no reason why you have to get to the seamy side of things to have people be interested. People aren't basically interested in this.
Well, of course they aren't.
I think they're sold an idea by sensational newspapers and sensational interviewers that this is the thing to be interested in. I've always found that people just love to hear about their favourites.
That's right.
And actually, I don't think that they want anything dragged down about them.
I don't think so. I think the world's full of enough sadness already, don't you?
Absolutely.
Anyway, so I was delighted, and I said to Don, well, if you're willing to try, I'm certainly willing to have a go.
Oh, it's marvellous.
And I've interviewed so far people like Dave Clark, Dusty Springfield. I might add that you're the luckiest person in the world. I have been trying, Binny Lum, for 3 months to get hold of the Beatles. But they're always dashing somewhere. I'm always dashing somewhere. You come here, and inside 24 hours you get them. Really, I think our friendship's just about had it.
Well,
so anyway,
it was a bit sensational.
It was, yeah. So I've been writing this stuff, and the editor has been watching me very closely. And from the mail that's come in, everybody seems to be very pleased with the articles. And apparently the organisation that this magazine is within are watching me closely with the view to me writing perhaps further stuff for other magazines. I don't know, Binny, because I love great journalism. I'm not a journalist. I write as I talk. And perhaps that's human enough. I don't quite know.
I think this is the way to be. I was talking to, here we go now, Charlotte Bingham the other day. Now, this young girl had such a success with her first novel, Coronet Among the Weeds, and telling me about how she came to write it, she said that she writes as she thinks.
Yeah.
And she feels that a lot of people don't write well because they write what they think they think.
Yes, precisely.
And she feels that if only people would sit down if they really want to write and just write as they really think, that it'll come out well.
So, of course, I sort of write reams and reams of stuff which the editor gets hold of and edits and cuts down and says, I think that although you say it this way, it reads a little better this way.
Fair
because
enough.
he's the experienced person.
Yeah,
so,
well, of
so I
course.
take direction from him.
Yes.
And perhaps in time I may develop as some sort of a human writer. If you can call it a writer, I don't know.
Well, it's a marvellous step, isn't it?
It's
My
wonderful, Benny,
goodness,
yes.
the way things have developed since that dreary night that I waved you goodbye, clutching a streamer.
Yes,
You
down
didn't
at the ship.
You didn't ever know the funny thing that happened that night, did you?
No, what happened?
Oh, I adored this. I was standing there feeling very sad and sorry because you were leaving.
Yeah.
And I noticed a couple on my left, and they were kissing passionately. And I thought, well, I'm sorry Alan's leaving, but after all, I'm not going to suffer like they're going to suffer, because quite obviously this is a very, very big moment for them. And so from time to time I would look over and they'd still be kissing passionately. The ship left, the streamers broke, and as I turned to leave, I saw this couple get up off this bench and walk off the pier. Nobody had said goodbye to anybody at all.
No. Hysterical. That's a marvellous story, isn't it?
Always remembered that from the night that I said goodbye to you. Ah, dear. Well, Alan, if you're going into the Prince of Wales soon to compare these concerts, are you still continuing with all the radio and television work that you're doing?
Yes, I'm continuing with the radio and television. As a matter of fact, Binny, the programme that I do on Sunday afternoons here called Pick of the Pops, that will finish at 5. I will jump into a taxi.
And believe me, there'll be one there.
We hope so. And sort of dash to the Prince of Wales and put my pants on in transit. And sort of just literally get there in time to walk up on the stage all perspiring and relaxed and saying, hello, here we go again. So it's going to be pretty busy.
Isn't it going to be fun, though?
By the way, I'm going to do a film for Milton Subotsky.
Oh, I see.
It's a horror
You're
film.
starting to sound like Lionel Bart.
Oh, that man is so rich, I hate him. I'm going to be in a horror film.
When's this happening?
Starts in June. We start production in June. And it's a story. It's called Dr. Vine's Tales of Terror. And it's a story of... it's a theme containing 6 different horror themes, all sort of interwoven, you see. And for me, it's the first chance at getting right away from disc jockeying or pop music or anything else. And I'm cast as a sort of a husband. I'm told that perhaps a very lovely British actress named Janet Scott might be playing my wife in this film. And the theme that I'm involved in, or the story, revolves around vines, creeping vines, that start to come out of the garden and entwine the house and come in the doors and through the windows and all this sort of thing, you see. And it's all very ghastly. But what I think is so marvellous is the end of this story that I'm in, because they eventually find that the way to get rid of the vines is to burn them, you see. They burn these vines, and everything is all beautiful and lovely. And the final scene shows me walking out of the front door, lighting a pipe and throwing away the match. The match lands on a piece of earth next to this burnt vine, where a new little green shoot has sprung up. And this match lands beside this green shoot, which just politely bends over and taps the light out. And that's the end of the story that I'm in, which is terrifying, isn't it?
Oh. Can see people queuing up for this one.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to be a second Frankenstein. It's marvellous.
You're always aware. What are you talking about?
Flattery will get you nowhere.
Alan, I want to give you my warmest thanks and love for what you've done for me here in London. Much of what I've accomplished would not have been possible without your help and the tremendous regard in which people in show business here hold you.
You're a darling, Benny. Thank you very much. I think you've done a magnificent job. You've got to come back, because there is so much here untouched. that you can touch and give so much to the audiences back there in Australia, and they will love it, I promise you.
Well, I think that people do. I've heard Australians here saying that when I go back and I start saying that I've met Robert Clary and I've met Lionel Bart and other people, we won't mention the Beatles,
Yeah.
they're going to sort of say, oh, there she goes, name dropping. But I
No.
don't feel this with the general public. I really don't. I think the people who listen to my programs would love to meet all these folk.
I agree emphatically, and I don't care what anybody says. Everybody in the world is interested about something that they haven't experienced or somebody they haven't met. And I'm sure that anybody back in Australia who hears the stuff that you've done on tape, if they turn around and say, oh, there she goes name dropping, I can only say to you, Binny, they are the people not to be concerned about.
I think that's a fair comment. But, as I say, I don't think that that's a general line of thought. I feel that people are going to enjoy this trip around the world with me.
I'm sure they are. Bon voyage, back to New York, back to Australia. And, no, I shan't say it. And I shan't say what I was going to say, because I wasn't going to say anything. Bye-bye.
Well, that's a promising finish, isn't it? You have